welcome back to another episode of the Real Health Podcast. Today, we're gonna talk about something just very current, and that is the new food pyramid that's been flipped upside down. And so today, I want to talk about really one of the we'll cover most damaging health tools ever created, and that was the original food pyramid. When you look at that old school food pyramid, at the base of the pyramid, the largest portion were grains. It was bread, cereal, rice, pasta, 6 to 10 servings per day. And then above that were fruits and vegetables. And then above that was protein. At the very top were fats. And that was very sparingly, right? Everything was fat free. So for the last 40 years, if you look at our disease rates, chronic disease and obesity rates, well, they've only increased, right? So we obviously have to be doing something wrong. And to put fats at the very top, when you think about fat as being one of the most critical nutrients to the body, especially the most critical nutrient to the brain, 60% of the brain is fat. Cholesterol is single-handedly, when you consume it, responsible for every steroid hormone in the body. You can't make and synthesize vitamin D without fat, without cholesterol. We see a modern epidemic of Alzheimer's dementia, and we know that increasing your fat or increasing your cholesterol, consuming it, doesn't increase actual blood chemistry cholesterol. Very, very few genetic issues would cause an actual increase of blood chemistry cholesterol levels. And so, gosh, we just totally missed it. That pyramid sent 3 messages that were wrong. And the first one was carbohydrates should make up the majority of your diet. Wrong. Fat is dangerous. Wrong. And calories matter more than food quality. Wrong. And so today, here's the problem. Human physiology just doesn't work that way, right? The model ignored blood sugar regulation and insulin signaling, and how food impacts our satiation levels and hormones and metabolic health. And it was all treated as like, hey, calories are all equal. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you get your carbohydrates from a donut or from broccoli. Like, carbs are the same. But it's just not true. And so how that food pyramid contributed to chronic disease is that when we encourage a global population, or for us, even just looking narrowly at the American population, to consume high amounts of refined carbohydrates, especially grains that convert quickly to glucose, you're just chronically elevating insulin. And as you elevate insulin, we get fat storage, insulin resistance, inflammation, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and the list goes on. So we obviously have missed it, and the result is people were constantly hungry. We saw blood sugar instability. We saw metabolism slow down, obesity rates increase. We saw type 2 diabetes skyrocket. So the obesity and chronic disease epidemic didn't happen because people ignored the guidelines. It happened because they were following them. They were following governmental guidelines that was saying, hey, everyone should do this. And it's just created a metabolic disaster. So low fat is a problem. You need fat. Fat is essential at helping stabilize blood sugar, support hormone production, brain health. And so what's different, right? Let's get into what's different about the new guidelines and why they're a significant improvement. First, protein is no longer an afterthought. It's not like, hey, just incorporate a little bit of protein. If you look at people over the age of really 60, they don't eat a ton of protein. It wasn't encouraged. You look at kids now and you're seeing, hey, focus on protein, fat, and fiber, protein, fat, and fiber. And so protein is emphasized at every meal with the new guidelines. It preserves muscle mass, it improves insulin sensitivity, it raises your metabolic rate, it supports metabolic health, and increases satiety. So you're just feeling full in a sense. You're not going to be super hungry 10 minutes after a meal. Second, whole foods are finally front and center. We're not talking about processed foods anymore. We're talking about whole foods, and the new guidelines strongly discourage ultra-processed foods, including rancid oils, ultra processed rancid oils that are terrible for your health. I mean, canola oil, Crisco, right? Margarine is a massive oxidative stressor. And finally, we're getting rid of those. So third, healthy fats are no longer treated like toxins. Fats from meat, grass-fed meat, and salmon, and eggs, and dairy, and nuts, and seeds, and olive oil are now recognized as being healthy. And when we look at carbohydrates, it's not on the foundation anymore, right? So when you look at the new food guidelines, it's flipped upside down, and we're going to see that, hey, guess what? Carbs aren't the biggest portion of the food pyramid. They're included, but they're in a more moderate and intentional way. Ideally, they're coming from fiber-rich sources rather than refined grains that are being mass-produced by commercial industries. Right? It's whole foods. It's vegetables, it's fruits. And so why is this such a positive shift? Because finally, right, we're getting, a mass communication of this is so important. It's a diet centered around whole foods, adequate protein, healthy fats, and fewer refined carbohydrates. That is the message that we've been preaching for the last 20 years at the Real Health Co. And it supports blood sugar stability. We talk about that all the time. Better hormone balance. We talk about how hormones are built off of nutrition. It reduces inflammation. Inflammation is the driver of all chronic disease. It improves body composition where we gain lean muscle and burn fat, and it lowers your risk of chronic disease. So is it perfect? Is it paleo? No. But is it a meaningful move in the right direction? Absolutely. We are making a stride to say, hey, let's go into a mindset of whole food nutrition, realize that what we adopted for the last 40 years is terrible. Let's flip it upside down. Let's prioritize protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich foods coming from vegetables and fruits. And if you look at it, it's going to make a shift in our American culture. I think it will absolutely. If people were to stick to those guidelines, it would make a significant health impact in our market. So when you think about nutrition as being confusing, that's why it's confusing, because for 40 years we've been taught one way, and then all these providers, these functional health providers or nutritionists, are saying, hey, you need to think about your health differently, right? Fats are good; they're not bad. Wait, what? That's crazy. Or hey, if you eat cholesterol, you're just not going to raise your cholesterol levels. What? That's wild. Hey, you shouldn't eat margarine. Eat grass-fed butter. I was told that was terrible, right? So now we're getting a congruent message from government to providers locally, and it creates clarity. And everyone needs clarity. Everyone needs a clear message so we can move as a community towards greater health. Again, is it perfect? No. But is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. If you were to ask me my opinion on the new food guidelines coming out of the government, is significant improvement in moving in the right direction. If you were to follow those guidelines, it would move the needle in most people's health care journey. Hey, hopefully that was valuable for you. There's my quick insight on the new food pyramid guidelines. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Health Podcast. Our passion is to add value to your healthcare journey. Anything that we do, we want to do it within a community to help as many people as possible. Thanks for listening to episodes of the Real Health Podcast. If you could if you could subscribe, and you can share, it would help our mission to reach as many people with real health that produces real results for real people.